Hello everybody, Messageri here with another video. And this one we're going to be going through the vehicles that I have gotten for the little competition-y kind of like thingy review, whatever we want to call it. I will be honest, this is second attempt because for some reason OBS decided I'm going to pause. Just whacking stuff randomly on my wall because I'm upset about it. Yeah, it decided randomly to pause. I did not know about it because I didn't hit the pause button. Nothing like that. So it just paused. So we do have that issue. On the left, though, we got Big Stain's Miramar over here. Pretty awesome deal. We can see some parts already. Kind of peeking the way through there. And on the right side, we got Leah, if I got that right. And the ETK I-Series. So both good old school classics. I love them. The new cars are great, but they tend to be a little bit heavier and a little bit more wild to handle, to be honest. I like this unrefinement, though, because the car actually kind of feels like it's speaking back in a way, whereas the new cars, meh, it goes this way, it goes that way. You know, the Miramar, the ETK, you can kind of start to feel when the back end is coming out, when the things are understeering and all that. It's really nice. So I enjoy that we got these two cars here. So we're going to hop on over to BeamNG and let's see if I can nail this. Okay, so it seems like, I may be wrong, BeamNG, or not BeamNG, OBS is pausing every time I'm transitioning a scene. Why? I don't know. I have not set that behavior. It has never done that before, so getting a little frustrated, I'll be honest, but it's at OBS. That's all. Because it's going to take forever if it keeps doing that, right? Anyway, let's carry forth. We got here the ETK I-Series from Leah. I want to say that was again. Again, I do apologize if I'm incorrectly pronouncing it. If I get anything wrong like that, I'll be honest. It's just because I'm usually decent with names, but I'm also like, you know, seeing about 1,000 names a day. So, you know, it's a little tough. Yeah, I was gonna talk about this hood kind of situation here, but in all honesty, you can kind of see it slowly sinking. Just go ahead and show you guys. We'll pop this open. And I know there was a trunk situation. Look at that. We have a hood situation too, and it has not been fixed. So, yeah, the dev's got to fix that a little bit, but it's okay. Just means I have to be going at speed for that to open up. So looking pretty good. Very nice with the color scheme. I do like it. We're using some of the liveries that are available here. I was trying to find the right word. And yeah, pretty good. We can see the power up on top, everything like that. And I mean, it's pretty nice. Head on over to Big Stain's Miramar here. So we got the blue cover top section there, which I really like that color scheme. That's really nice too. Very kind of almost hidden in a way, but at the same time, really nice. A little bit of a, hey, wait a minute, kind of look to it with that kind of color scheme. Pretty good there. And this one, the hood actually closes and opens appropriately. And I mean, looks very good. Very nice. Very nice. So we're going to go ahead and just take it around the regular track here real quick, kind of get an idea into what parts I've got in the cars. So just judging by, take it up to 3,000 or so. You can tell we got the ultra lightweight flywheel in here. Sorry about that. Just dropped my controller onto my desk again. And we're going to go with Evening Sky 1. No, let's go with Evening Sky 4. There we go. Really nice. Kind of darker evening type deal. Very nice. And BeamNG with its automatic clutch thing not always working great. And that's the map. That's nothing more than the map. So let's just set that there. Definitely got lots of power, lots of go juice. Getting a bit of understeer under power. Churning is pretty good though. Low power, of course, with the big turbo. Stage 3, I'm guessing here. We don't necessarily get too low, so got to keep her high in the RPMs to get that turbo to build pressure. There we can see the car kind of walked out, mostly in the front there, as I got really heavy on the throttle in the corner. Rear end kind of stepped around, but the front end's kind of pushing too. Braking past on the speedometer, we're gonna hit the wall here. Because the ABS just soft locked me. Nope, I managed to save it. Did not crash the car. Let's go ahead, Shift C, and we'll go over this way and drop it on back down right here. Oops, I hit F8 instead of F7. F7 to drop the car right here. Perfect. Ahead and shut it off. So yeah, we definitely got that, and it's pretty decent so far. Very good on the turn in under braking. But exiting a corner, you gotta be careful with how much power, because you start to overpower the front wheels, which leads me to believe there's a little bit more bias towards the front, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. You don't want to go full rear either, because when you do all-wheel drive, it is very good to try to balance it to where when you come out of the corner, you get a slight bit of rear slide, kind of almost just movement, not necessarily drifting. Just to kind of help, and then the front wheels will pull it along as well. So that's my personal flavor, again, of how I like to drive the cars and how that works for me. So not too bad. Let's go ahead. Make sure the recording is still going and it's not something with my mouse or something, right? A little bit of a weirdness there. There's wind. A little bit of a long one on the startup. So we do only have 200 horsepower, but it's not all about horsepower. Got another ultra lightweight flywheel. I could just tell by how quickly she's dropping down. Third gear a little on the longer side, but not too bad. We're still kind of just getting into the torque curve there. Can't say for sure. It feels like that rear differential is just slightly open. Of course, the Miramar does not get any ABS whatsoever, which I'm kind of sad about. I could drive without it, but it allows me to really push hard on the brakes and just not worry about it so much. Just on the edge of the peak of the torque there as we get into it. Pushing some good speed though. There we go, we get a little bit of a finish on in on that. Very good on the balance too here. I'm able to exit under full power right there. That was perfect. You feel that downforce though really pulling back on the car and the rear end on the high speed, which is very beneficial as well. It has to be balanced with how much basically grip you have in the front. So does seem to be relatively close on the balance though with that. Let's go ahead and pop over here. We're gonna go ahead and take this to another scene real quick. Let's just click on one. There we go. Put that back away again. So let's go ahead and take a look here, see what we got tuning wise to start with. So the front rear bias of the brakes has been adjusted a little bit more towards the front. that doesn't seem too bad. I mean, typically, you really can't go wrong with ABS with doing this, in the sense that if you need more front or rear, the ABS will help. It can get extreme if you go to like 10 or 90, you know, one of the extreme ends like that, especially if you put it a lot to the rear. It can really go wrong that way, but putting it a little bit to the front here should help, primarily when you're entering a corner really fast, but it's not steep in. You just need a bit of braking in. That should be okay. And otherwise, though, tight corners might cause a little bit of weirdness. Of course, brake force multiplier being turned down gives you more of a window before you fully hit the ABS or locking up. So if you can dial that percentage to where, say, 95% of your brake pedal is where you hit that, it's usually good, because you'll have some spots where you get compression. So you're going through a dip or something, as you hit your brakes, you can have a little bit of extra room in braking, and that'll actually take advantage of that, because you get more grip with like a theoretical downforce, so to speak. And I can see we got cooling ducts set to 100 because tire thermals are still kind of doing some things in here. So it does, but that's okay. It will result in the tires staying cool, though, because the brakes will never fully warm up, so the brakes will actually soak some of the heat back away from the tires. I've noticed that's kind of what the mod does. So you kind of want to try to balance it a little bit. You don't have to be perfect. You can go a little bit overboard, a little under. Won't be too bad. But going full out sometimes can cause a little bit of an issue. Kind of depends on what brake systems you're running too. Looks like torque split 50%. That's not too bad. That would be kind of why I think we're getting a little bit of the issue with the front end there. Understeering under high power during the exit of the corner, and we're kind of opening up and sliding along. That isn't too big of a deal, though, to me. It can be adjusted a little bit, but pretty close. It looks like, I think this is like 80% or so. 70%. Okay. So 70% is default. Forward lock rate on the center is 20%. Looks like default. That's relatively decent right there. It shouldn't be too bad. You can, if you're running a really tight course with a lot of tight corners, good to kind of pull this back a little bit. I'd usually go like 15 to 10, just to help allow the front and rear to kind of independently act. I mean, it's really not going to play a massive role at all. This is going to be like down to taste, really. And you can tighten it up a little bit more if you get a lot of corners where you're opening up and you need a full power and get all that you can down, kind of a deal. Coast lock rate, we're down a little bit, which isn't too bad. That'll kind of help with like going into a tight corner under braking to allow the front rear to brake kind of more independently and not bind through the drivetrain. Preload torque a little bit less too, so that helps to keep that a little bit more open as well. Let's see. Drive ratios, they can be whatever you want as long as your gearing stays within power band. In my opinion, that really helps. I know, like the old school of Bishop S, I have a setup that keeps it right there in the power band, and I have, no joke, drag raced people that have built their 700-800 horsepower cars this 500 horsepower, and I've walked right past them because I kept that power band right there. They kept falling into or out of power band, so they'd be at 300 or 400 horsepower, so they'd be below where I was at power wise, and I'm just pushing on up and going right past them with it. But yeah, power lock rate in the front is a little bit on the higher side at 20%, because that, I think, is part of why when we're pushing, it's kind of oversteering us out. It is a tough one to balance, though, because you go too low, you're going to go into that open differential territory. You'll have one wheel spinning. You go too high, and now you get both wheels spinning in a way that causes it to push, so it's really hard to get that right fine tune. And personally, I feel like the better deal to me is to just throw a little bit more to the rear if it's starting to be an issue. Preload torques, we're keeping it a little bit more up on that, and the 0, I would say, in the preload in there. I'm not perfect with preload. I really kind of understand what the idea is that it's supposed to do, but I don't have a clue of like what is 40 versus 80 versus, you know, feel like. So that's one that I do have to learn. Rear side power lock, we're at 20% again, and that's not too bad, especially if you're trying to accelerate heavy out of a tighter corner and then open up. that'll allow it to really work that way pretty well in my personal taste. Again, I'm no expert, I'm not a professional tuning vehicles and setting them up, but I think I do well enough that it works. Coast lock, we're down at 10%. That's not too bad either. Personally, I like to have this a bit higher because when you're coasting, you're braking, and if the rear end starts to kind of slide a little bit because you're just slightly churning or something, having that kind of bind a little bit tighter will help with keeping that from going left to right as much, but you don't want to go too far because it will come right back around and start to slide back and forth again. So I usually go for like 25 to 30% at the very most, but you know, that's pretty heavy usually at that. We were at 14%, so 15% looks like. Yes, let's go ahead and put that back. I don't remember what I was. 10%? I want to say something like that. Yep, RPM cut limit. RPM limit cut time. So this can actually play a role. It really depends on your vehicle and if you're experiencing a lot of wheel spin, if it's a drift car, off-road vehicle, stuff like that. I've noticed, like, especially with, say, mud vehicles and stuff, to open this up a little bit, give it a little bit more time, allows the wheel to spin up, and then as it cuts, it can slow back down, and then it'll do a spin up, slow down, and you get more of that, which seems to work better in off-road scenarios. Drifting, I mean, drifting is drifting. As long as you can do it, throw the cut limiter all the way to half a second if you wanted to, you know, make it go crazy, do what you want, as long as you could use it. And as far as racing, usually keeping it a little bit tighter around where we're at, which is default, usually works just fine. Make sure that, you know, like, again, you shouldn't really be wheel spinning when racing, but it does happen. Some of us just do it for having fun. I'll do it, have fun even. Not going complete professional on it, just trying to have some fun with it. Looks like our front anti-roll spring is reduced and our rear is increased. So that should help a little bit with kind of helping the steering with the tuck in there, but I want to say that our rear anti-roll might be a little too high because we were picking up one wheel as we kind of going around a little bit there, and you could hear the RPMs just creeping up a little bit. I wasn't changing throttle, anything like that, and it would just creep up as I turned in a little bit sharper. So that was kind of picking up that wheel. Bump dampening, rebound dampening, spring rate, that kind of stuff. It's very difficult to get the hang of and very difficult to really break down and explain very well. Like, obviously it's very easy to understand what they're supposed to do, but how they interact with each other in the car and make everything work, especially when considering cornering and all the other dynamics that can happen, you're getting into a big mess. A really big mess. It's easier to understand anti-roll springs a lot better. Anti-roll bars, I don't know why they call it springs. They're supposed to be bars, but we'll go past that, right? So what I like to do when I'm setting suspension, think about, usually off-road, I'll take the car or truck or whatever really high up, kind of like that usually. Drop it and see if we bottom out. Obviously this is a race car, so we're gonna bottom out. Racing cars, I like to take it just a little bit up. You see, we're kind of getting close to bottoming out. It's a little bit hard on this side to see. We'll pull it onto this side so you can see in the sunlight. So we're just pulling her up a little ways, and we can see we're getting a little bit close. So that tells me either bump or spring rate need to be increased. You know, and that's how we could work with that. Now, right now, this is pretty all right. Making it stiffer would be difficult for the Nordschleife because it is a more rough track and it is so long with so many variations. You want a little bit of pliability in your suspension. That way, when you hit the jump section, you know, I know I'll say jump section, even though you really catch just a little bit of an air, a little lift. But when you do catch stuff like that, it actually helps to work with it. Now, transmission ratios. Again, this kind of plays into just making sure you stay within your power band here. You make sure that everything works out. You don't want to be crawling all the way down to like 3,000, or even this 4,000 is a little bit on low, because as you're pushing through this, you're accelerating slower. You're not getting as much speed in. Looks like I'm clipping my mic a little bit, I just noticed, so there is that. So yeah, you kind of want to stay, you know, 5,000, maybe 4,500-ish right about here would be about the lowest I'd push. and then let it eat up the rest. Try to keep it though in this section that's going to keep you going, especially when you're talking about turbo vehicles, especially the really big turbo, like stage 3 big turbos. The higher you can keep it in there and the longer you can keep it in that, the better, because that will allow it to boost faster, build that turbo, get that thing moving, and ooh, it's going to go crazy. Now we get into wheel alignment. My personal taste, everybody's going to be a little bit different. Professionals for racing and stuff might say different things. You know, everybody's got their opinions. Everybody's entitled to doing what they want. So we can see camber here. We're around 1 degree. Right side of the car versus left side of the car is going to be different because we only have 1 seat, and there's also a steering console, all that kind of stuff. It's a little bit different. No car out there except for a single seater in the center, like a Formula One or anything, is going to have a perfect left to right camber without setting all kinds of other various geometry metrics and stuff. It takes a lot to get that right. But by default for BeamNG, you're going to have some variation. That's okay. Personally, I like to try to keep whatever side is lower about 0.1 off from -1 at the minimum. So here we would look at adding a little bit more camber, or in this case going more negative to help it out a little bit. So rear camber, we could see, you know, we're at 0.773, and I take that back. And toe, we're front, perfect. Front is just perfect. Let's go ahead and reset so you can even take a little bit closer of a look here. Turning off the car, making sure everything is stable. There we go, because I did a little suspension bounce, so it'll change it. That is something else to note. So yes, rear looks like we could use a little bit more, just a pinch. It also might be the location I'm at, and it might not be perfectly flat. Grid map is definitely great to do this because it is perfectly flat. It allows the tires to sit nicely. So, toe, we're doing pretty good. You can use toe to help with turn-in and response and stuff, but when you get into a higher speed track, something that has more open corners, you're going to be really a lot of speed. Maybe speed actually matters, stuff like that. You know, like again, you go into an oval track, a giant oval track or something. Get that toe, cut it down, try to get it zeroed, because I don't think it's going to help a lot. When you're at a tighter track, getting it up to like maybe 0.2 at most would really help, because that can give you a lot of turn in, but it's a balancing act depending on where you're at. So personally, I just like to go 0. I mean, yes, for some of the tighter corners and stuff, I could get it, but then I can get some more top speed and have some more fun. It may be a couple miles an hour, you know, but a couple miles an hour at 180, it can add up to a little bit of time there. Next, let's see, wheel offset. I mean, our wheels are pretty much right where they would need to be, so they're not too bad there. And our tire pressures are a little on the lower side. So here's the thing. When you get really high tire pressure, basically you're going to be decreasing the amount of surface patch you have on the ground. And that's going to reduce your grip. That's also going to make the tire less likely to form to the ground and the surface that it's on, which I mean, BeamNG I wouldn't say goes that far with tire physics to be very good with. So it doesn't matter a whole lot here. But in real life, that's definitely something you want to look at. So you're rock crawling, you want those tire pressures as low as you can without fully deforming the tire when you have half the vehicle's weight, I'd say, on one tire, right? That would really be an ideal situation for rock crawling, because then you can actually get that tire wrap on there, really stick to it and work with it. But when it comes to racing, you don't want it to be fully up and you don't want it to be fully down, because you go too low. The other thing you will get is your tire's going to be more soft overall. So it's going to be more likely to move left to right. It's going to be more likely to have kind of this mush to it, almost like mashed potatoes in a way, you know? And you kind of want it to be more like a steak. A little bit of wiggle, but it's still firm and it sits there and it hangs it really good. And a weird analogy, I'm just thinking about food because I'm hungry, but that's really a great way to put it. You know, maybe more like Jello is kind of how they would be too soft. You know, it's still there, but it's really jiggly. A steak, a lot more firm, doesn't move around as much. So 15.5, maybe a little bit on the low side. Not too bad, though. Not too bad, though. And now we'll go on over here. Take a look at what Big Stain's got going on. So Front and rear brake bias, looks like that's standard. Brake force multiplier is at 100, that's standard. I think personally this could come down a little bit because we don't have ABS to rely on so much. So getting that kind of dialed in a little bit closer could be helpful. Of course, the cooling ducts thing, like I said, that's tires, or the brake thermals, tire thermals kind of deal that I don't really care too much because we're not going to use that. And then all right, guys, I am back. Beep boop, computer did a poop. And yeah, I gotta be honest, it's exactly what happened in my head when that happened. I was just sitting there, I was like, uh-oh. So everything froze up, and then, yeah, so I had to restart. We're gonna get on into big stains, tuning, and take a look at what we got here, but again, looks like brakes and chassis-wise we're all set up here. So I was going to say brake force probably could be tuned to work better with that. You know, probably would take it down to a little bit or something like that. We'll go through and I'll do some tuning after I run a before and after lap. I'm going to go ahead and do some timing as well with them. So we'll get to see that. We'll get to see if maybe me getting used to the car or if it's me tuning the car. I don't know. You guys can make up your minds on what you feel like it might be, right? Let's see, differential power lock rate. We got 35% to the rear, so a little bit more aggressive, but I don't think that's going to be too big of an issue because we have the downforce of the slower corners. So just have to be a little bit more mindful with the rear wheel drive to make sure to not overpower so we don't slide too hard. We want a little rotation to push it. Coast lock is at 20%, which is a pretty decent value, not too bad. I think that's pretty fair. Our rear final drive is all the way up to a 5.5 to 1, so it's a little bit high, but again, doesn't really matter with the rear drive and the gear ratios as long as everything stays within its area. I think we'll be okay there. So we have 7,800 for the rev limiter. I'm thinking, in case you didn't know, we can do this too. Thinking that's what we need. Okay, apparently it doesn't want to let me, but you should be able to do that, but I guess it won't let me, but whatever. I think that's what we need is just touch more, but that's okay. Our RPM cut limit time is all the way down, so like I was saying earlier, that's really good for racing. It really doesn't matter too much unless you expect to be hitting it, but if you do, it kind of helps to prevent your car when you're at, say, like we're going down this straight section, right, and I'm at the top speed that the car can do with gearing. Instead of it hitting, say, let's say it's 162, it hits that rev cut, and then because of how much time there is, we could drop back down to 160 and then go back up to 162, 160, 162. So with a lower time cut, it could be down to 161, 162, 161, 162. And it really, again, is just tiny, tiny touches with that amount, you know, for time and everything, but that's not too bad. It looks like our anti-roll spring in the front is set at 200,000, which is kind of crazy, but that's the default, right? Our bump dampening, not too bad. Our rebound dampening has been really lowered down. So that's basically how fast the car will come back up, and how fast it'll allow it to come back up, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing, especially with this being the Nordschleife, with it being that way. Just got to be kind of cautious because if you hit a heavy compression zone like a dip and then you come up over a hump right after that, it could cause that front end to lift off the air. It could be propelling it a little bit much, but we might be okay. We'll kind of have to play around and see how it goes on the track. But yeah, it might be a little low, might not be. Definitely a play with it, find out what you figure. Again, the bump dampening, rebound, spring rates, stuff like that is really tough to get. Spring height, though, does play a role here, so he's got it lowered this time instead, and that'll help a little tiny bit with top speed. Probably not enough to offset the wing being on there if it wasn't, but then that would make cornering more difficult, right? So I don't think that's going to be too big of an issue there. I think we might bottom out a little bit in some of the higher compression zones. We'll have to kind of see how that goes. I think we might be okay. Fifth gear here, so it looks like third, fourth, fifth are just a little bit on the longer side. That's going to help push that top speed up a little bit more. Not too bad. It doesn't look like it is adjustable either for the wing, so it looks like that I would have to guess is the GTT wing. The GTC is usually my go-to because you can adjust it and it allows you to kind of set I want a little bit of downforce, or maybe I want a whole lot, depending on, you know, what speeds you're going around the track. Because if you got a tight, small track where you're like maybe hitting 100 at most, put that thing all the way to the max, right? Or at least put it up a good bit, because it's going to help pull that rear end down more in the low speeds. Yeah, reverse ratio doesn't really matter. Camber, all that kind of stuff. Go ahead, pull live data again. So front left, front right. Our camber is pretty decent. The rear camber, though, looks like it is a little bit... I mean, 0 isn't bad, especially when you're considering like a drag car, something where you're pretty much in a straight line. When you are cornering, though, even in rear-wheel drive, you want a little bit. You don't want as much as you do in a front or all-wheel drive, I would say, depending, you know, what kind of power, weight, and how the car is set up. But again, I personally think a little bit more camber to the rear would help out a little bit more there. But there's no adjustability, so not sure what suspension is being run in the rear. It must be the regular Sport. Is it the race? Because I thought this is an IFS. Independent, or I don't know, IFS, independent suspension. I keep thinking IFS all the time because that's just what I'm used to seeing from the independent front suspension from the Gavril Romer D series. Because you can't do that rear, you can't do an independent rear suspension, sadly. Yet, they need to do it. Caster adjustment, this is something that is, well, I'm not even really great with it, but essentially your suspension typically will go vertically. If this is at a perfect 0 degrees caster, you're going to have a vertical up and down. And as you adjust it, and I want to say towards the positive rate, that's where I'm not great at this, is it's going to start to push it to where actually it's going to travel more at a diagonal. This is actually good, especially cornering, because if you have it straight up and down, that can cause a lot of jarring in the suspension and the tire to kind of bounce and hop. And with it being at an angle, that allows it to kind of compress as you're going into it and not so much hit it. But you don't want to go too steep, because when you come over the bump and it wants to come back down, that can actually kind of cause some weirdness with it coming back. So you want just a little bit of angle to kind of get it up and down like that. You don't want it to go sideways, basically. I mean, you can't actually get it sideways. You know? Looks like tire pressure's up to 30, so that's not too bad. Again, that could be fine. It depends on the weight of the vehicle, though, as well. So that's not too bad there. And I mean, that's pretty much what we got. So let's go ahead and take the Miramar through the track first this time. Takes a good little bit for it to start up here. And because I had to restart, I don't have clouds up, so we need to get something in here. Let's go partly cloudy. Got high beams on for that little bit of extra light. Now we'll just stick first person here. Can you get a feel for how the car feels like it's running? Then I'll go ahead and get a time from the bridge up here to the gantry back there, and a full lap time as well. So far we're doing pretty good though. Oh, that's my bad. That is my bad. Let's see. I'm gonna have to restart that. Oh man. I hit insert, so that makes it that new home for that. Let's go ahead and we'll give it another shot here. Okay, so we're gonna give it another shot. Again, I'm kind of hitting that lockup point really easily here. Exiting corners does very good there at full throttle. At least where I'm currently at, I haven't hit anything super low speed though. There we go, now I make it around that. Handles the curve, they're pretty alright. Then we get to see what kind of power I can put down here. See how far we can get up on the speed. Top it out right there a little bit, so we can use a touch more on 5th gear. There we went, lock it up to that. Rear sight, it felt like, is what locked up. So might push a little bit more front. Synchronecker's damage thing is just BeamNG and its auto clutch, so I just gotta manually clutch it. It's just because I have a button. It's unfortunately the way I have it mapped. Can't do it like the good old days. I used to play a game called Live for Speed, and I actually used the right thumbstick for the clutch. But being that controls the camera here, yeah. Just had a touch of lift through there, but it held on pretty good. That's great. Full throttle on that exit just sticks there, so it's really good. You don't have to worry about the rear end sliding around too bad. Trying to make sure for the uphill I'm pushing her up as high as I can. brakes there, but kind of right on that edge of where there should be shift. Shifted a bit early there. That rear differential, the rear left tire was kind of off the carousel, so it didn't have a lot of weight on it. Using that torque rate out more, so hold speed. Backed up the inside tires there a little bit. There goes that front end. It kind of lifted there a little bit. Holding her flat right through here. We'll go ahead and go up this way. See that rear end's really squishing down for a lot of downforce here. It's not too bad. It looks like, though, brake bias and rear suspension. That's what I would say. Let's go ahead and I'll change it up, and then we'll change to the other car here. ETK. And we'll see what we go. So, let's see. First, parts-wise, was I right? We actually are running a 1.9 dual overhead cam. So there are other engines in here that are non-vanilla. So that is the appropriate engine to be running here. Everything else is a different deal. Stage 2 performance, that's the best you can get within vanilla. Ultra heavy duty engine mounts, that's pretty good. We got the racing exhaust, side draft carbs, that's good. And of course, we got a regular flywheel. So this is where I definitely would change to an ultralight. This will allow the car to rev up faster, and it may make it a little more difficult when exiting corners at low speed because the car is more willing to spin up those tires and everything. But on the other hand, that'll allow shifts to happen a lot faster, and you get less time spent where you're sitting doing nothing essentially while you're changing the gears. I've been coasting. So let's see, left and right doors, perfect. Everything's fine there. I mean, everything looks pretty good this way. Ooh, gotta change that. And I mean, yeah, everything else looks great though. And let's see, what do we have in our rear suspension here? So we do have race parts. I don't know why the game does that. It likes to pull me up sometimes randomly. So we're on 225 45 racing tires in the rear here. Let's see, yeah, and there really isn't anything wider without going taller as well, so that's not too big of a deal there. Differential race limited slip, of course, we've seen, that's fine. I went away without changing anything. I didn't hit apply. What a goofy goof. So that, and ultralight, and probably anything else. Yeah, so we got the GTT wing. That was definitely what I was thinking. We're going to go with the GTC. It doesn't look too much different. In fact, it's a little bit smaller if I am correct on that. Yes, and lower. Maybe not quite as fitting, I'll be honest. But the big thing is, what I want to do here, we can go 78. Let's see if we can push 79, 50. Maybe even let's just go to 8. That should be okay. Final drive, I'm just going to drop this down to a 545. This is going to give us just a touch more top speed in that 5th gear as it stands. I'm going to also lengthen that. So here we can see we can adjust our rear wing angle. Of course, the more it is in this, the more downforce. I think I'm going to go with 9 degrees. It's going to be a little on the low side. My Pessima build, that 500 horsepower one I have, has this wing and runs 13 to 15 degrees usually, but it's also 500 horsepower, so even if it's all-wheel drive, it still definitely benefits. Rear suspension, I'm going to pop this up just a little bit in the front, just one little bit there. I think that'll do pretty good. And I think that's going to be that fine. So this is where we can really go low on first gear because we're starting off there. It's not too big of a deal. And then that'll allow us to push this just a little bit, this a little bit, and this a good little bit here too. So it's all going to push back just slightly, help us get a little bit more top speed, maybe keep us in there a little bit better. Let's go like this, actually. I think we'll do that. That should keep us pretty close there. And then there really isn't anything else. Live data, we can see we're pretty close on our toe and everything there. The tires are pushed out what they can be, so we're all good there. That's really about as far as I think that's going to need to go, personally. Professional could come in and change entirely everything. I don't know. I'm not perfect, right? Nobody's perfect. So yeah, we got the 3-liter 9.6 stage 2 performance block, stage 3 variable boost here in the ETK. Definitely. Hold on. Oopsies. Turn that off. There we go. We can just save that a little bit. And transmission, we do have the ultralight flywheel. That is perfect. So everything is great there. And I mean, everything else looks pretty good there. Front lip, we got the chin spoiler going on. Definitely very nice. With the turn signals in it. We got our oil cooler, high performance radiator, all that good stuff going on. We definitely have to have that strut bar. That is awesome to see. And there it goes again, pulling me up. Here we are. So 225/50 racing tires in the rear. So this is another thing to kind of keep in mind is you want to make sure you have enough tire profile for your car. Going on those super skinny, thin tires doesn't allow the tire to deform as easily because of the sidewall thickness and how high it is there. So doing this with the 225/50 isn't too bad. I think this will be just fine here. I think parts-wise we're pretty good on this side. Everything is great. I don't know why I'm changing anything yet, though. I haven't driven it, have I? I didn't change anything, did I? No, I didn't. I didn't change anything. I just looked. Oh my goodness. I'll be honest, I am extremely tired. But that isn't going to stop me. The only thing that might is a barrier when I'm going 190 miles an hour. I think I did change that. No, I didn't change anything. That's okay. Okay. Well, let's just go for it. Get ourselves a time around here. If I did change something I forgot already, well, I'm sorry. Definitely a change in pace. A little bit early here, so you can feel how that turtle's not building up. It's my fault for shifting a little early. Ooh, that was a good misshift kind of a deal there. That was supposed to be an automatic one, but... it's not really too much of a fight. It's an easy one to win and overcome, but the front end is definitely hard to handle on the exits here, just with all the power. Yeah, the bias that's set to it. Oh, we caught air. We caught some air there. There, I would have used power to help push that rear end and give me a little bit more speed around that corner, but as I added power, it just was pushing me out a little bit more and more. Drifted a bit early there. Coolant's already overheating. Uh-oh. Might be a short run. Uh-oh. I'm gonna try to baby it along as I can. You can see that gauge just whoop. Just trying to get it right up to the edge of its heat capability here. Seems like I'm doing pretty good with that. Oh, it does not want to go in. Poor car's probably screaming for help right now, like, I'm overheating. Oh. I got into the throttle too much there. Gonna push the front end out. Catch some air here. Trying to put some air through the radiator before we get to the straight here. Give us just a little bit more time before we start melting her out. Ooh, man, that's toasty. Definitely got her hot. That is for sure. So let's go ahead and put it back here, this default spawn. And I'm gonna go ahead and just park it here. Go through, change up what I feel like I would change up. So starting with, I think we know. There should be, I guess there isn't an ultra high performance, is there? I thought there was a vanilla ultra high performance radiator in here. So we don't get that option. So the rest of those are modded. I'll tell you that without a doubt. Let's see. So what we can probably do is, let's see, so we're at 708. If I went to a stage 2, it puts us quite a ways down, so I really don't think that's worth it there. Yeah, that's just going to stay the way it is. There is our... So yeah, we got the vented hood. That should help a little bit with cooling, just a pinch. Oil cooler should definitely help, just a pinch. What I'm wondering about is, where is the front bumper? Because I think this is vanilla. I think it's vanilla. Do I know that for sure or not? No, I don't. I really don't know that for sure. Go ahead and do that. That will, I mean, if I'm wrong, I apologize. But this should give a little bit more airflow to the radiator. Just help that little bit more. So we got the headlight wipers still on here? No way. Gotta pop those off of there. I'm sorry. No more wiping away the tears. So yeah, we got that. That's pretty good. Now tuning wise, here's what I think. This could benefit from being 60% rear. So that's percentage to the rear. Give us that little bit coming around kind of a deal. Our forward lock rate, I'm gonna pop this up to 25. Front drive ratio is fine. Power lock rate in the front. Let's go ahead and pop this back to 18. Just a pinch back. Just a pinch. I think preloads are okay here, though. They're doing all right. Let's see. Final drive ratio. Power lock. Yeah, that's all good. I looked at all that. We're good here. I'm going to pull this back to 08. I think that'll be better. Let's go ahead and drop this just a touch. And our front anti-roll is fine. Our rear, I think, is a little bit stiff. I'm going to take it just to 38 there. Just to give a little bit more maneuverability. I don't think it was too far off of that, so pretty good deal. And sixth gear, we're at a 0.83. We're going to go to a 0.77. Take this down to a 9.7, and we should be pretty good there. Now we can pull up our live wheel data, and I'm thinking... Let's see. Yeah, let's go a couple more percent front and rear here. And then we don't have any... Yeah, we have caster adjustment here. We're at 5 degrees right now. I'm going to pull that back a little bit, though. I want to... Oh, boy, how is... Fun thing about the percentage slider is the percentage of ability to adjust is the way it works. I wish we could set a value for it to be at roughly, you know, and get a kind of a deal like that. So there we're 5.3. Whoops. Bumped the button on my controller. And yeah, so I think that's okay. Might scrape a little bit, yes, but I don't think that'll be too bad. And then I think we're gonna go up to 23.5 at 22 in the rear. Still might be a little mashed potato-y. I just can't get that out of my head. I think that's hilarious. But I think that'd be pretty good, honestly. Toe adjust, I mean, we got our toe set pretty good. The front toe, now that we've messed with things, it's gonna change. Everything changes as you mess with different things. So it's kind of a little bit of a fun one that way. And we're a bit negative, so we go 3% up. That should take care of that, if I'm right. No. Let's see, how about that? We're at a 0.2. So this really needs to come up, doesn't it? Yeah. Let's go 34%. And there we go. Kind of get that flickering, so it's pretty much right on in there. It comes down to our height as well, so kind of see that's going to definitely change as it go. Our caster now has changed to 5.7. It was at a 5.3 before. 100%. Yeah, it's a little bit much. Let's go to 70. Just don't want it too aggressive. Usually around that 5 degree. 3 to 5 is usually pretty decent, depending on the vehicles and such. I think that'll be pretty good there. We got our tire pressure set. Our tires are pretty much as wide as they can be. I'm gonna go ahead and just give it a pinch more. And I want to try to like nail this right on in there. The wheels do not come through, so let's go 3, 4. And every little bit you can get it out will help with stability and cornering. And just, yeah, it will though. The further you push the wheels out will make the suspension as a total softer. So everything will behave softer. So keep that in mind when you go ahead and do stuff like that. So now we can see our toe is negative in the front a little bit. Now that I've moved them out. So that's kind of the fun of playing with this stuff, is you get to do that. So it's negative. So now we need to add a little bit more into there. The front here. I think that's going to be pretty good. I always get confused on the negative versus positive, which way it's supposed to be, but ideally I want just a little bit coming in this way. And I think we got it. All right, now let's go ahead and take a look at what Big Stain has here and see what we get with some slight adjustments. The one thing I forgot to do. And it seems like it's got a little bit to the rear too much, so we're going to go ahead and give it a little bit more. We're going to go, let's go 2% up to the front. So take a little bit of that brake strength away. And we can see we're pushing this down all the way right until we get a drop, which isn't too bad. It's supposed to be higher than that, but it doesn't really want to go any higher, does it? It's doing this thing again. I think this is another bug with BeamNG, to be honest. I've had this issue, or it's a bug relating to some of the mods. Controller's dying, so I gotta plug it in really quick. So yeah, so if we put this at 7250, now you can see we're at like 8500. So it's not quite registering, right? And this makes it a pain to try to dial this in. But we want it to come just a touch after, go 1 notch back there. Touch after this drop, because then I could push into that a little bit to keep it over here on the higher side. Pushing into a lower power band at the top of a like 3rd gear and going into 4th gear and having that right in power band is better than being 3rd gear, top of the gear, in power band, and going 4th gear into lower power band. Because your gear ratio changes and you lose torque to the wheels. That's how gear ratios work. So 1st gear, you got a, say, 4-to-1 final drive, and you got a 2-to-1 gear ratio. You're having an 8-to-1 ratio. So every 8 turns, or every, 8 turns of the wheel would be 1 turn of the motor. So that means your motor torque of 100 foot-pounds is actually 800 pounds to the rear wheel. But then as you change a gear and you go to a higher gear ratio, you lose that. So it's always beneficial to try to go a little bit over the top. Doesn't look like we're gonna have any issue with over revving either. So yes, we are pushing a little bit heavy on into our 1st gear, kind of running the clutch that way, but now we can see we're sticking right into that torque band. We are over revving just a hair. We'll try to cut it at 8 and try not to go too hard. So it is a little balancing act sometimes that way, but I think we got it here. I don't think time-wise they're going to have a massive difference here, but there he goes with that rear wing, not having that. losing that downforce, so it could be added some more into there, but again, slow speed corners, that's just gonna happen. But I am chasing after getting some more top speed going. So now we should much sooner see a top speed here. See, at high speed, we're doing just fine around all this. Still making speed out into there, that's perfect. Look at how fast those shifts are too. Braking down, maybe take a percentage back, but I don't think it's necessarily so bad that it's going to be difficult to handle. It just means when you brake heavy in a corner, you have to be very careful because it will bite. It will kind of toss the car a little out of balance. So slow that it really won't cause an issue for quite a while. So even in career mode, you should be okay because you usually go crash, ding, something like that, upgrade before it'll become an issue. You want to be just on that edge of getting that warning. You don't want to go too far with it. Just a light tap. It's a little bit late on the braking there. Try to dance with the tires locking up as well, but it seems like the balance is actually not too bad. It does nosedive pretty hard when you hit the brakes really hard, which could be due to that bump dampening that maybe needing to be adjusted. I thought it was rebound dampening, never mind. That could be it, part of it, but otherwise, I think this is still pretty good here. There you go. And you get a nice high resolution fancy image there. Okay, now let's go see what this turns into. We're still going to run into the overheating issue, no doubt. Yeah, now we can just shift away. We don't have any issues with that. It's going perfect. I like everything is going great here. Right there, you got a little good rotation coming out. Ooh, I hit the grass. Nope. Ooh. Well, I think it's got to happen to each car, right? Bit of a good slide there. here. We're overheating again though. Brings me back to the days of alerting to two-wheel drive. That was a good one. Get out of the throttle a lot earlier coming out of that one. Again. I try to take it a little bit easy, but keep some speed up here. Basically able to hold full there. Oh man, I think we're okay-ish. A little bit of right front weirdness, but we're almost to the end. I was doing very good, and then I had to speak. I have no left-hand steering really. keep the timer rolling here. I'll get to actually see this thing go. Imagine sitting in the passenger seat of this. Too early. Oh, that hurt. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. So, guys, we have our times up. We have everything we can see. I think these cars are pretty good. Pretty good. Yes, the Miramar may have only had 200 horsepower, but horsepower is not everything. It is about how much fun it is to drive the vehicle. Both of them, very fun. This guy here from Leah is a challenge to drive, but not in the way of like it's hard to handle or it has a lot of issues, you know, or anything like that. It's just a lot of car and a lot of speed. So you have to be very precise, very quick, and concise with your actions, but man, you can make it move. If you guys want to go ahead, you can give these guys a shot here. See if you can get these vehicles around the track a little bit faster than I did. Let's see if you guys can do that. How would that be? Make sure to save that. So anyway, a little bit longer of a deal here, and I may look into doing this once a week per new entries that I get. And by that, I don't just mean the same person, new car, new car. I mean, I want a new person each time. So we'll see how this goes. But if you guys are interested, you can go ahead and if you haven't sent in a vehicle here, go ahead and send one in. Maybe we'll make a Tuning Tuesdays type of a deal if it gets enough traction and it actually starts to go off. I think that'd be pretty fun. We have Monday RLS, Tuning Tuesdays, Wednesday we get a break, Thursday we get more RLS, Friday I want to do some more vanilla. I've got to hop back into getting that. It's just been a lot of work because of setting up for the new RLS. And then Saturday, more RLS. Sunday, we get a break. I think that'd be pretty crazy, right? But I think I might be able to pull that off, kind of doing some stuff like that. We'll have to take a look. But again, guys, that is it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know any thoughts you have down in the comments. Otherwise, again, bye-bye.